The call we did earlier this month, really the big takeaway for me in that conversation was that the SDI does, in fact, have a synergistic effect when coupled with other courses and approaches. Whether those solutions are unique and created by the organization or popular off-the-shelf programs. The SDI is a learning tool that creates a powerful sense of self-awareness around the motivation that drives behavior when things are going well for us and when we experience stress or pressure. And it can be a valuable addition to any learning intervention where effective human interaction is the essential outcome. Today, we have the opportunity to explore how the SDI powers learning interventions delivered by the OD function in one of the world's largest media companies, Thomson Reuters. With 60,000 employees in more than 100 countries, Thomson Reuters generates over $12.4 billion in revenue. My guest today is Jay Spach. He played an integral part in the growth of Thomson Reuters business over a 20-year career as Senior Vice President of Organizational Development. Jay has helped hundreds of leadership teams figure out what's keeping them from being the best they can be and has led initiatives to drive cultural change and transformation, organizational design and restructuring, team effectiveness, process improvement, and team facilitation around the world. More specifically, he orchestrated the global integration of two unique cultures when the Thomson Corporation acquired Reuters in 2008, transformed the HR and finance functions at Thomas in the mid-2000s to drive greater efficiency and impact, and supported the cultural transformation and reorganization of 150 newspapers across North America in the 1990s. Jay, welcome and thank you for being part of the Power Your Learning show today.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. Happy Halloween to everyone. I wish we were doing this in video conference. We could see everyone's costume, but maybe it's better to just imagine that. Just one quick administrative thing, Mike. It's Thomson Reuters. I don't care what you call me as long as it's not late for dinner, but the Thomson family might be upset. So.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Jay, you spent your career in the OD function, a world that can be a bit nebulous to those of us who come from traditional training or HR backgrounds. Can you begin by telling us what the OD function does and how its focus might be different than the training or employee development functions that organizations might have?
Sure. I think you're right. If there are 100 people on the call, there are probably 100 definitions of organization development. At Thomson Reuters, we had a very clear idea about what OD is, or organization development, as opposed to individual learning. Essentially, we were interested in impacting intact teams, project teams, task teams, divisions, organizations, and so we had a fairly clear idea of who was impacting individual development and who was impacting group or organization development. So the kinds of things we worked on are in this slide along the platform of organizational diagnosis, major change management, new leader assimilation, org alignment, continuous improvement, restructuring, psychometrics, team evaluation, and post-acquisition integration. Those are just some of the things, whereas the talent organization dealt more with individual talent, succession, organizational effectiveness, like performance management, learning and development, coaching, that sort of thing.
Now, you led a strong and diverse team of OD professionals during your career, and I'm sure all came with strong professional backgrounds and credentials, and yet, as the leader of this team, you had to get everyone on the same page. To describe this team development process, Dr. Tuckman uses the terms forming and norming. So how do you use the SDI to align this group and get everyone moving toward common goals?
You know, the first thing we did when after the Reuters acquisition, when we began to centrally deploy our OD resources, is I had a chance to bring my team together to kind of form itself. We were kind of distributed before that in the different businesses and functions. And I thought to myself, how can I, do something as a good activity to start a group like this of seasoned, as you say, OD professionals, and all development folks, whether they're in talent development or learning and development or organization development, we all love new tools and we all love new ways of doing things. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring folks together and not just get to know each other, but also get to know something else, learn a new tool. And what I loved about SDI is there is always both the group dynamic and the individual dynamic in any team session, in any team performance. And part of that is team styles. And as we look to improve teams and help teams, one of the things that gets in the way is simply the word conflict. And I think conflict rises from a number of things, lack of role clarity and others, but it also arises from individual style differences. So I was looking for a standard tool. Obviously, there are lots of them out there, Myers-Briggs, Whole Brain, all kinds of stuff. But and some of the folks on my team were proficient in some of those, but I thought if we looked at one that we could all perhaps standardize on, we could improve ourselves on it, we could be using the same vocabulary and use it to do things like align new teams, up the game of teams that were facing a new challenge, fix teams that had something broken or needed an intervention, and expand teams and make them even more proficient across boundaries and geographies. So we came together and spent a couple of days in training to learn it, and it turned out to be a great idea. And it really helped not only give us a new tool, but also help us to kind of know each other and bond and have some common vocabulary.
So was there just one thing that really pushed you over the edge in terms of deciding on the SDI as your common language of relationships for your team and then throughout the organization as you looked at these other psychometric tools that are popular, they're available, and honestly they add value? What was there? Is there one thing that really stood out for you about the SDI?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that while a lot of them measure preferences and behaviors, the SDI goes deeper into helping to understand and make visible motivations. And having awareness of people's motivations and what really drives them, in addition to how they display that, I think is a much greater and deeper sense of awareness and helps us to understand people at a deeper level. And that's what I felt SDI did more than any other, was to A, go after and help us to understand the motivation, and B, display that in a way that helps us manage conflict.
And conflict is also a unique element of the SDI, and a lot of the other tools don't address conflict in the same way the SDI does. Was that especially helpful to you as well?
Particularly, a lot of the work that we had been doing, for years individually in the company had been around helping teams with conflict, but there was always that individual style aspect too that drives some conflict. Misunderstandings about what people mean, misunderstandings about their behaviors, misunderstandings about, their motivations. And those things also cause conflict. So being able to hit the kind of structural things that cause conflict, as well as the behavioral and motivational, kind of gives you a 1-2 punch, and that's what I was looking for, and that's what we got from SDI.
You've used the word team a lot already in our conversation. Can you? I know one of the roles that you and your group had was to help teams raise their game. To work more productively together, to be more effective as a team. Can you offer some insight on how you and your OD colleagues use the SDI to help teams up their game within Thomson Reuters?
Sure. I think upping their game, there are kind of two flavors to that. One is some sort of newness of the team, right? Either a new leader or a team that's been put together from two other structures. And that's a team that's got to quickly form, figure out what it needs to do, what the new mission is, but also understand each other's motivations and behaviors. So for those, and also teams that are looking to maybe intact teams without much change in the team membership, but they have a new opportunity or a new challenge. So we would use things like new leader assimilation and the SDI, right? Or in upping the game, we would use perhaps team mission and vision and strategy and the SDI. Sometimes it would look like a 2-day intervention. On the first day, we'd talk about what the team's vision and what the team's mission is and strategies might be. And on the second day, we use the SDI to have a really robust discussion about our differences, sameness, possible causes of conflict, reasons why we might have misunderstandings, and not realize that we're all really trying to get the same thing. We just do it very, very differently in some cases. And awareness of that can really help move through and manage conflict. I don't mean avoid conflict, but manage conflict.
Now, one of the unique things that the SDI does and the model that we offer has for us is the ability to graphically represent the personalities of the entire team on a triangle for everyone to visually see what everyone else is all about when things are going well, and then how things change when people experience conflict. In your view, how important is it to have that visual representation that people can see and share and discuss using a common language?
It's really critical. Groups like graphics, right? They like pictures. They grab them more easily. I think, and groups are different from individuals. I love the saying of the philosopher Nietzsche, who says, in individuals madness is rare, in groups it's the norm. And he's probably right. Perfectly sane people get into a group and act kind of insane. Graphics really help. And when we're doing, as I said, a two-day intervention or anything that helps us to kind of understand each other's motivations and behaviors, being able to display that on the triangle, not only as individuals, but also as a group that shows, who's red, who's green, who's hub, and who's blue, and all the different shades within those, gives us a real graphic sense of whether we're kind of a lot the same, which has certain issues and advantages, or very, very diverse, which also has certain issues and advantages. It's not like we need to be one way or the other, but understanding how different we are in terms of our motivations and how we might address conflict and handle conflict is the awareness of that is really powerful, and displaying that on the team map is a great way to do it.
And in my experience, I rarely have anyone who resists sharing their results with others on their team, and for the most part, people are proud of who they are, and they're pleased to have people understand them and know them in a deeper way. What's your experience been with that? People sharing their results and discussing them and engaging with others about who they are at the level of motivation.
Yeah, we had the same experience, and we would often make it easier for folks by displaying the individual SDI for the leader first, and using the leader's SDI map and his MVS as a kind of a display of, look, if the leader can tell you what he or she is, you certainly shouldn't feel funny about putting yourself up there on a map as well, and that makes it even easier, I think. So we'd usually start with the leader and then display the team map.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a moment ago that one of your roles was to help teams that were struggling, and sometimes the struggle is represented by the composite of personalities trying to work together, and other times it's one individual who sort of stands out and makes life difficult for everyone else in the group. And you shared an example with me yesterday when we were chatting about one person who was making life particularly difficult for a team. Would you mind sharing that story and how you were able to come alongside that person and actually make what he was doing sort of make sense and help this team to work through this disruptive behavior, and you sort of changed the future of this team, was my understanding.
Yeah, it made it a lot easier, certainly, to work together. Teams over time can, let's face it, teams can get broken. Oh my gosh, what a shock! Yeah, they can, and you never actually know why, because for this team, this example, this was a global marketing team, and it had gotten to the point where there were a couple of personalities that were so sort of at loggerheads with each other that the team would shy away from, and certainly the leader of the team would shy away from having difficult discussions on a team basis. So everything got done kind of in little hub and spoke ways or around individual conversations, and they would never bring anything really tough to a team meeting, to a regular operational meeting or otherwise. And that's really too bad, because people learn more and drive more buy-in and acceptance when they can hear everybody. So we were asked to get to help with that, and rather than just dive in and say, well, that must be personalities, we did another what I call 1-2 punch. We spent the first day clarifying roles. What do people own on the team? What do they have to collaborate on? What do they have actually no say in, etc.? And that kind of clears the air to some extent if there is a lack of clarity around roles. And then the second day we did the SDI, and it was really a revelation, not just to the two folks that people kind of presumed were sore thumbs, but to everyone, to get a real understanding of how the motivation of those two were very different from the rest of the group, who were mostly hubs, and they weren't the same either, those two. And understanding that difference at a deep level or a motivational level kind of cleared the air and made it sort of easier to use the analogy, to breathe and to say, I mean, at one point, one of them said, oh, so this is why I'm stamping my shoe on the table and everyone else is staring at their shoes under the table. You get this understanding of why this dynamic grew. And with many things, whether it's behaviors or just spinach in your teeth, awareness is more than 50% of fixing it, right? And so that was the case with this team. They became much more interactive and much more able to grapple with tough things from then on.
So differences don't have to be stumbling blocks for teams if we understand the reason why. I think
right. If we don't understand them, they are. If we do understand them, they can actually be a cause of really good conflict, right?
Indeed. Now, you mentioned a moment ago the fact that you work with global teams. In fact, Thomson Reuters is a global organization in the fullest sense of the word. I think you have employees in 100 countries. And in fact, in many organizations, it's becoming rare to have truly localized teams where everyone comes together and sits in the same office. And I think that's probably the case that you experienced in your role. So in your experience, how does the SDI help to bridge some of these geographic and cultural barriers that can make it more challenging to work together?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know that we had any teams that we supported or worked with that were actually in the same building, certainly not the same floor, and most were not in the same city or even time zone. So I think the SDI helps in 3 ways. First is, the question is, well, does something like this play well in other cultures, right? And we found it did. In India, we had terrific uptake around SDI. Europe, no problem. We never really had any problems in terms of using it with a team in another country. So that's one aspect of the global. Second is a very practical one. I think that this working globally and spending most of our team time on either teleconferences or at best video conferences, we forget about how much we lose about face-to-face. Either losing the ability to see people's facial expressions or their body language, or even on a video conference when they're not speaking, we don't see them, and so we can't see their body language and see if they're engaged. That actually ups the necessity of understanding people even better. I mean, when we have them on the same floor, the same building, and in the same room all the time, we can get to know them. We can learn by experience. When we don't, we need a little something extra, some more structure, and SDI provides that. We get to know these people that we rarely see and almost never meet on a much deeper level, which helps us interact with them in this distributed way. So that's one very practical way. The other is, often when we talk about teams working in multiple cultures and across multiple cultures and geographies, we talk about the cultural norms that kind of drive many people's behavior. So people in this country are more like this, in this area of the world are more like that, etc. And while that may be true, all of those differences play out in people's behaviors, don't they? Mm-hmm. So having a tool that helps you understand people's behaviors is really where the rubber meets the road, not back where the cultural norm is, because I can have a cultural norm about being quiet or less extroverted, but yet individuals within that culture might be quite different, and the SDI helps you understand that. So there's really three ways I think the SDI helps in working with cross-border teams and cross-cultural teams.
What, if you had to boil it down to its essence, what is it about the SDI that really makes it work so well across cultures?
I think it's asking questions that are I don't want to say culture agnostic, but they are questions about what is deep down in people. They aren't actually questions about it. It shows you that deep down motivation and allows you to talk about it in a way that you can understand it and relate to others with it. And that's something we all have no matter where we are. We are all motivated, right? And we all show those motivations through our behaviors and our styles and our preferences. So it gets you to that kind of what is base about us in terms of working with each other, right, in relationships. And that's the beauty of relationship awareness theory that the SDI is based on. And that is that, all people around the world, regardless of culture, are motivated by things, and those motivations can be measured, categorized, and understood.
So motivation is truly a universal phenomenon.
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I've certainly found it in 30 years of working with teams. Yeah.
Jay, this might be a good time to transition to some questions from the audience. As a reminder to our audience, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions directly to Jay via the chat function in GoToMeeting, and we've had a couple questions come in, and so let's see. Here's a good one to begin with. Jay, how does the SDI align with other enterprise learning initiatives, even when those initiatives are led by other talent functions like HR or training?
It's funny, we didn't have a heck of a lot of experience with that in the 3 or 4 years after the integration until I left the mothership and went out and launched a practice on my own. But actually I was talking to an associate of mine who is still at Thomson Reuters, Christine Sheedy, who's a great SDI practitioner, and she told me about a really interesting integration with a management development program that's being launched at Thomson Reuters. And one module of that program is, for want of a better term, kind of getting to know myself, right? And
Right.
they use relationship awareness theory and the SDI for that getting to know myself, and how great that is to be integrated in a way that managers use that framework to understand themselves, and then when they're working in teams and may use the SDI as a tool, it's familiar to them and the vocabulary is familiar, and so that kind of greases the wheels for doing all of this sort of thing if you can get it also kind of embedded in things like performance management, values, leadership development, etc. So I thought that was a great example, and kudos to her for making it happen.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. What we found is that the SDI truly creates that common language and around relationships that makes it easy to talk about things that are sometimes difficult to talk about, and also the SDI is easily integrated into a variety of initiatives, and that's what this whole series is about. The next question that's come in is, how does the SDI help the organization's mission?
Oh, that's a good one. I think, the organization's mission, to achieve a mission, you have a number of levers, right? Leaders have a number of levers to pull. They have their structure, they have their culture, they have processes, systems, technology, etc. Pretty much all of those levers are going to be pulled by people, and they're not going to be pulled by people doing this in a microcosm or alone or in a dark room. They're going to be done by people working with other people. So, the whole aspect of understanding others in a deep way that allows you to relate to them and interact with them makes all of those, it's kind of I hate to keep using greasing the wheel as as a metaphor. I should have found a Halloween metaphor instead today, but it just makes all of that easier,
Greasing the
right?
pumpkin, Jay.
Okay, greasing the pumpkin. I'm not sure that works, but it sounds good. Uh,
Yeah.
I think, all of that, it comes back to helping to inform the culture as a place where that is welcoming, that understands each person's diversity and point of view and the value that they give to the organization, because that's what SDI helps you understand at a deep level, is what that special value of that person's point of view is in order to drive culture, in order to drive the ultimate mission. So I think that's how it does.
Some people would suggest that that's pretty soft and mushy. And some of our leaders look toward sort of hard number results. So in your experience, and this is another question that's come in online, um, how did you measure your results as an OD leader, uh, whether it was around using the SDI specifically or just driving results in the organization through the interventions that you led, you executed for the teams you worked with?
Yeah, it comes in kind of three levels. The first level of measurement is that easy one, the one where you're working with a group that either has low quality or needs higher quality or greater productivity, and there's a clear metric. We need to be able to do this in 3 days, not 3 weeks, and we need to look at processes. We need to look at structure, relationships, etc., in order to do that. Those kind of sort of self-measuring things are sort of the easy ones, and that's probably not what the question is about. Questions about the softer ones. I think it has to do with strategy. So if you do these sorts of things, and the main reason you're doing them and working with a client is to help them implement strategy. And by the way, what other reason would you have to work with a client but to help them implement strategy? Really, that is what leaders do. They implement strategy. So if they're having a problem implementing strategy, either because of of teamwork, or because of process, or dealing with change, or dealing with diversity, etc., all of those things help implement strategy. So how did we measure our effectiveness? We only did stuff that clearly would help strategy get implemented, and then we went back and said, did this help you implement your strategy? Other than the easily measurable ones, in my estimation, that's the best way to go about it. And as long as you're helping leaders implement their strategy, nobody's going to tell you, what dollars, and obviously you keep your dollars low. Nobody's going to wonder whether you're a value add.
Right, you're supporting the mission.
Right.
Now I'm going to read the next question directly as it's been written and passed to me, so I pass it along accurately here.
Mm-hmm.
How has Thomson Reuters looked to use the outputs from the SDI sessions into supporting staff development along the lines of 70-20-10 split?
Interesting. So the 70-20-10, I presume, refers to the, where learning happens, whether it's on the job, right, or in projects, or in the actual classroom, right?
Yes, that's what I would assume as well.
Yeah. So I think I've already given one really good example, which is in the 10, the classroom one, the management development one. I think that most of it, however, happens in the 70, because if we're in a session in an SDI and we gain a greater understanding of our relationships and interactions with our teammates, that all plays out in what I do every day. I was actually on a early conference call this morning with some clients at Thomson Reuters, and one of them was talking about how diverse their area was, and he said, we're very diverse. We have greens, we have reds, we have blues, we have hubs, and he didn't even know I even knew what SDI was. So even and this was in Asia, the nomenclature and vocabulary of understanding the diversity in others in terms of their point of view, background, and motivation starts to seep into the way we talk, the way we act, and that's in the 70%. That's in the 100%.
And, I think you mentioned earlier the real value of the SDI, and when it really starts to kick in and click is when it becomes integrated in the culture of the organization. People use it in their the language in their meetings and the performance management process. It becomes part of what we do and how we do it, and that's where we see the most value in our clients,
Yeah,
for our
and I would say
clients.
it's not even, specifically whether they use the words or the colors or whatever. It's whether they get that learning, right, about motivations as opposed to preferences and behaviors, and kind of start to live that way and look that way and interact with folks that way. That's where the real benefit comes.
Now, I've got one final question, and this question is, did you get all of your OD team members certified on the SDI, and did they facilitate learning for teams, or did you work with external consultants? Which approach works best in your opinion?
Well, in this kind of teamwork that I've been describing, we did it mostly ourselves. Now, I'm an independent consultant now, so I really should be talking out of both sides of my mouth. But at the time,
That would
internally,
make you a politician, though, Jay.
yeah, exactly right. At the time, we did, yes, we did all get certified on at least level one. Actually, one or two of us got certified on level two because our client set really needed that. Yes, we were all certified, and these kinds of difficult team interventions are the kinds of things that do often go to external consultants. And in my current life, I should probably say, what a great thing, and everyone should do that. But the fact is, internal consultants, if they have the tools to do these kinds of things and have these help teams with difficult discussions like this, their knowledge of the company culture, the company mission, challenges, all of that on a very deep level, and also relationships with others, actually can be more robust in this than an external person. So, we often shy away because it's going to be difficult and use an external for this sort of thing, but I think internal folks are really, really good, and they also can do more references to other teams who are struggling in somewhat the same ways, give good examples of how other teams have overcome some things, perhaps using SDIs, perhaps otherwise. So there's a lot of benefit to using internal folks. So I wouldn't shy away from it, but you just have to make sure we have the right tools and the right certifications to do it well. Can't believe I just said that, but I did.
Well, your honesty is appreciated, and your contribution to our understanding is greatly appreciated as well. You've been a great guest, Jay. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and share your experiences. And unfortunately, that's all the time for questions we have. Now, a few additional questions have come in, and we'll do our best to get back to the folks who have asked questions. But let me transition to a few wrap-up remarks right now. I'd like to make everyone aware of how they can begin powering their organization's learning with the SDI. The first step, as Jay mentioned, is to become SDI Level 1 certified. This is a 2-day professional training that prepares you to administer and facilitate learning with the SDI self-assessments. During this course, you'll learn how the SDI can enhance your work with individuals and groups, as well as equip you with the skills, resources, and confidence to begin using the SDI the very next day. Now, we have some SDI certification sessions coming up. Our sessions, we have 2 sessions at the level 1 remaining this year. We have a session in November in Austin, Texas. We have a session in December in Fairfax, Virginia. And then the third session we have listed on the slide is in January in Washington, D.C. Now, for those who have already been through level 1 certification, we would encourage you to consider level 2 certification. And level 2 is where you learn how to go beyond the basic set of self-awareness tools to work with the tools that offer feedback and expectations opportunities for learners in your organization, people you work with. It takes you deeper into the theory, and it just makes your understanding, it takes it to a higher level. So we've got a couple of level 2 certifications coming up, and we'd encourage you to consider those. Now, the investment to attend either of the certification courses is only $1,400, and if more than one person from a company attends, we offer a 10% discount. It's also important to know that continuing education credits are offered by a number of professional societies, including HRCI, the International Coach Federation, and many others for attendance at these sessions. So if you're coming to the end of the year and you're looking for some professional continuing education units, you might also consider SDI certification. So please consider becoming certified if you're not already certified. And for those who are already certified, I'd like to make you aware of a special product offer that it's probably the best value we've ever offered our customers over the years. It includes a standard SDI, either paper or online, two brand new resources, the SDI Learning Journal, which is a very clear and concise presentation of relationship awareness theory in a very accessible visual format for learners, and also for those who want more and a deeper level of understanding around their SDI results. We have the Working with the SDI book, which provides a lot of information for each MVS, each conflict sequence. It helps us understand how to relate to one another from our particular MVS and conflict sequence. It's a great new resource that's just about 6 weeks in the market, and if you haven't seen it, you really need to get your hands on it. And of course, the SDI Quick Guide, the practical job aid that everyone should have on their desk, quite frankly. And the value of all these products, if you were to buy them separately, would be about $75. But if you can purchase in 50-unit quantities, we'd be thrilled to sell you this value bundle for $50 each. So it's a tremendous savings. They're all great resources that you need to really make the most of the SDI. So thank you all for being part of this webinar today. Jay, again, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. To those of you in the audience, thank you for being with us today, and I hope you'll join us for future webinars about how the SDI can power your organization's learning. So with that, we will close. I will wish everyone a happy Halloween, and we look forward to hearing from you and hearing about your successes with using the SDI to power your organizational learning. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.